May 1954. And I know that because that was the first year I was in school and I got out in May. Would put me at 5 and Tim at 4. And Mom would have been pregnant with Rosemary. In fact, she had Rosemary that summer. So Tim and I are out there doing our business, and finished up, done a little brainstorming as usual, solved some of the mysteries of the world for us at that time. And back then, you know, a lot of the more well-to-do people with outhouses had catalogs and stuff, but you know, Dad was a little cheap. We had corn cobs, and the problem that morning was that, as I noticed when we finished, there was one corn cob left. Now, if you're out there on your own, that's fine. And Tim picked it up at the same time, and this had happened to us a number of times before. And we did what we usually did in those situations. We had to make a decision, and we'd do something like rock, paper, scissors, and the winner would get to make a decision. Of course, here you want to use the corn cob first. But Tim was, from a very early age, had amazing eye-hand coordination, so he was always beating me at rock, paper, scissors. And so, of course, I changed the game frequently and would practice a lot. But no matter how much I practiced, he seemed to always come out winning. So I came up with a brilliant idea that morning, and I think that's why it sticks in my head. I said, you know, Tim, he's always set off the right of me. I just finished school, and you know what we covered this last week? This exact situation. When you're down to one cob like this, the rule is the older brother gets the cob first. So Tim thought about that for a while, and I said, well, you know, that doesn't seem fair. And I said, well, talking fair, I mean, I should have been getting this half the time. I mean, I should have been getting this all the time for all these years, and I'm getting it basically half the time. And besides, think about it. Mom's going to have another baby here shortly, and Tim and I had already figured out that it's going to be a son. I'm not sure how we had that figured out, but that was our calculations. And so I said, you know, you're going to have another little brother, and so you want this role. This is perfect. I mean, if you're out here with your little brother, you're always going to get the cob first. So Tim thought a little more about it and said, yeah, I guess that makes sense. So from then on, I always got the cob first. Tim was a little bummed out, I remember, when Rosemary was born, because we were a little segregated, usually guys or girls. And but at that point, the rule was already set, and it was too late. So I always got the cob first.
Yeah, old Uncle Tim. I got a lot of memories of Uncle Tim. There are a couple that really stand out. There was one summer after my freshman year in college, I came out here and lived at the farm and lived with Mike and the dog, and that was a really character developing stage in my life. And I had the opportunity to work with Tim doing video production stuff. I really learned a lot about working with people and how to work hard and make clients happy. And there was no greater example of making clients happy in customer service than this one thing I remember. We were out on a shoot somewhere in Nebraska, or I don't remember where, but we took the clients out to a bar, and Tim's still doing the song and dance, making everybody happy, and the clients wanted to see something on a monitor right there in the bar. And Tim said, oh, that's no problem. And he ran out to his truck, and he got all of his camera equipment. He got a camera, the monitor, lighting equipment, and everything. And he drags all this stuff into this packed bar, and he's plugging stuff in and setting up lights, and right next to this pool table were these, there's 2 or 3 real big, gruff-looking guys that you probably didn't want to mess with. And Tim had a couple beers at this point. He was, really just focused on making those clients happy. And he's setting up lights and climbing up on the pool table, and this guy's in mid shot, and he's like, "Hey, asshole, what are you doing?" And Tim's like, "Oh, don't worry, I'm a professional." And he gets the light set up and gets his camera going, and he's got his monitor down there with the clients, and they're all happy. They see what he's trying to do there, and meanwhile there's this growing unrest among all the other bar patrons, and I'm sitting there, really afraid of what is about to happen next. And somehow we got the situation diffused so that there wasn't a small riot inside this bar, and me and one of his other assistants, Dave Briggs, kind of grabbed Tim, by the collar and like, "Okay, everybody's happy," and packed up the truck and got everybody out, and I think we dodged a bullet that day.
When we were kids, Uncle Tim used to take us on car rides, and every so often he'd tell us he'd just fill up the tank, but had accidentally put too much fuel in. He told us how dangerous the situation is, so to settle the fuel in the tank, he would start swerving the car wildly back and forth, which of course threw us kids in the back seat all over the car. We thought it was fun at the time. I don't think we fully understood the severity of the situation. That's a lesson I've really taken to heart, and I'm glad I had a figure like Tim in my life to teach it to me, and I'm kind of sad that more people don't have an uncle like him to teach them these lessons. I think they might be a little more understanding when, say, I accidentally overfill the tank and have to swerve across a few lanes of traffic to settle the fuel. I mean, honestly, don't these people understand that if I don't do that, the car might explode? It's unbelievable, really.
I was about to do it.
I was about to go even. All this time I was watching me.
Okay, go.
My mom.
If I were the king of the world.
You get the good vibration. It's really good.
When I think about my dad, so many great stories come to mind. But I think what's jumped out at me the most has been his ability to make jokes around new people, to try to make them feel a little uncomfortable, to be perfectly honest. I remember Alex brought his first girlfriend home from college, and my dad put on this elaborate African headdress with real monkey fur on it. And he put on some tribal music, and he was dancing around the living room, and he wouldn't quit all night. Yeah, that didn't work out for Alex and that first girlfriend. But I remember when he met my fiance's family for the first time, we were all at a graduation dinner at the Ox Yoke Inn, and we'd been sitting there for a while, and Dad finally looked at my fiance's entire family, and he said, "Did you know that the ox is the biggest mammal that can lay an egg?" And everyone just kind of sat there like, "What? Really?" And he said, "Well, how do you think they get the ox yoke?" And there was just some awkward laughter, and luckily enough, I think Mark might still marry me. So, when I think about my dad, I think about, all the jokes that he's made and how they weren't funny, but we all laughed anyway. So I think that's my favorite memory of my dad.
His golf game? He sucks. This guy could shoot a 97 every day. He could play the best round of his life, 97. The worst round of his life, 97. But the conversation was actually pretty decent during the rounds of golf. I remember one round specifically, he had just sold his company, Tim Kane Productions, and we were kind of just, chit-chatting about things, and he goes, "God, it's just gonna it's going to be great to do nothing, you know, for once in my life. I've worked hard, you know, since I was little, and I really feel like I deserve this. And of course,